A very good morning to everyone. We welcome you all to the webinar on Mummy, Papa and Loved Ones, organized by AFA. We request you to switch on your videos for an interactive session, and we will be taking questions at the end of the session. As you may be aware, AFA is a pioneering parent organization that works in the field of autism, touching the lives of many people. We work across age groups and skill levels in early intervention to adult living. Our speaker for today's session is Mary Barua. Mary Barua is the director at Action for Autism, an activist, a special educator, and a parent to a son with autism. Mary writes, teaches, lobbies, trains, sensitizes, counsels, and advocates. Her focus is on spreading the word and enabling individuals with autism and their families to empower themselves, which has led to growth in services and the formation of empowered parent groups, and in particular of parent-driven services. Mary is an Ashoka Fellow and has received national and international recognition for her work. Without further ado, over to you, Mary.
Hi, thank you so much, Aisha, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's a Sunday. सब कोई Sunday को थोड़ा relax रहते हैं, but you'll have taken time out to join. Let me just get my screen in place. Yeah, you'll have taken time out to join us. हम क्या करेंगे? We'll just have a little kind of I'll talk a little bit about a few things, and उसके बाद we can have a little bit of a discussion. We can take questions. It's not a very long period. It's about 1 hour. तो हम थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे, and about things that we feel that families काफी सोच में रहते हैं जिसके बारे. So, last Saturday, हम एक colleague को, I was supposed to meet a colleague over a cup of coffee, to talk about a project. Friday ko, the day before, she said, I'm really sorry, but can we please reschedule, because she had to go to her nani's place, because some cousins in-laws aa rahe the, they would be visiting, and she could not say no. And I said, sure, because I'm Indian, and I know that hamare culture mein most often hamara jo extended family hai plays a very, very big part in our lives. Not just in the joint family, but not just the joint family playing a role, but the extended family also. And there are innumerable family events जो इंडिया में होता है. शादी होता है, हर जगह होता है, मगर जो हम सेलिब्रेट करते हैं एक साथ मिलकर. There are shadis, birthdays, Diwali, Durga Puja, Eid, Christmas. These are all family events, and we all get and celebrate as a large extended family. And we will say, many of us, we live in joint families. India में there's a large proportion of people जो joint families में रहते हैं. कुछ नहीं रहते हैं, but जो nuclear families में भी है, उनके लिए भी the extended families are very important, right? And these family events and connections and get-togethers, ये सब हमारे लिए, these are very important parts of our lives. So this colleague that I was talking about, she's also a parent, has a son with autism, although hers is a little one. But there was something that she said that was important. And she said, my son loves visiting. मेरे नानी के घर मेरा बेटा जाना बहुत पसंद करता है, because he's a great grandson, a lot of importance over there. But हमारे लिए बहुत stressful हो जाता है, because हम जब भी जाते हैं, it ends up creating a lot of anxiety. So I asked her, ऐसा क्यों होता है? What happens? And we got talking. And a lot of the things that she said, that she shared, are so similar to what we hear from families a lot of the time. कभी ये होता है कि parent बहुत strict है बच्चे के साथ. क्यों बच्चे के साथ इतना strict होना है? जो करना है करने दो. कभी कभी ये है कि इस बच्चे को तो कभी संभालते भी नहीं रहे हो, that the child gets away with anything that we let them do, right? For instance, her son uses an iPad, and actually the iPad is often used for communication. ना वो जब आईपैड यूज करता है तब उसका कजन्स उसका पेरेंट्स को बोलते हैं हमें क्यों नहीं आईपैड हर वक्त रख सकते हैं, व्हाई कांट आई यूज द आईपैड. सो देन द her uncles and cousins and aunts tell her कि don't give him the iPad all the time because उसको iPad दोगे तो हमारे बच्चे को देना पड़ता है, stop giving him the iPad. कभी कभी उसके बच्चा जो मांगता है that is not acceptable. So क्या होता है, the parents get labeled as spoiled sports. Because क्या होता है उसके बाद होता है कि वो she very often doesn't feel like going to the extended family events, which a lot of the parents tell us they don't want to attend because it becomes very difficult and very stressful. But जब नहीं जाते हैं तब बोला जाते हैं कि ये तो कभी अटेंड नहीं करने मांगते हैं, पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करने मांगते हैं. And when families say this, it comes from a good place. कोई बुरा सोच के नहीं बोलते हैं. They come from a place of love and caring कि क्यों नहीं पार्टिसिपेट करोगे, आना चाहिए, ये फैमिली इवेंट्स है. So it comes from a place of love and caring. But it also comes from a place of not quite understanding कि autism है क्या, और उसके वजह से जो फैमिली है उसका क्या सिचुएशन होता है, उसके वजह से द इंडिविजुअल विद ऑटिज्म उसका क्या एक्सपीरियंसेस होता है. एंड द थिंग इज दैट when one has a child with any disability, but particularly when one has a child with autism, parents need all the support that they can get in raising their child. You know, there's a kahavat hai na, there's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And for kids with autism, it really is so. It takes a lot of support from everybody to raise the child, but it also requires informed support. समझ के जो सपोर्ट देते हैं वो इन्फॉर्म सपोर्ट का बहुत जरूरत होता है टू रेज एन ऑटिस्टिक चाइल्ड, बिकॉज द पेरेंट्स हैव टू डू एज मच लर्निंग as the other members of the family have to do. No parent is born or becomes a parent knowing how to support their autistic child. Because autism is a condition. All disabilities, there is a lot of learning parents have to do. But autism is a condition jahan par parents ko bahut sara learnings karna padta hai. And everybody who supports the child sometimes also have to learn as much, or at least as much as they possibly can. और ये क्यों होता है? Largely because autism is an invisible condition. If somebody is blind, you know that the person is blind, and you can guess, पूरी नहीं, but थोड़ा कुछ भी you can guess कि उसका क्या difficulties हो सकता है, शायद क्या support का जरूरत हो सकता है. But when there is autism, because it is completely invisible, देखकर पता नहीं चलता है ये autism है क्या, right? कोई physically हमको कुछ दिखाई नहीं देता है. That is when the challenge happens. And because of the invisibility of the condition, कुछ चीजें होता है जैसे कि, you know, there is a lot of blame that mothers have to put up with कि आप शायद जब बच्चे को कैरी करते थे आप ठीक से खाना नहीं खाते, सोते नहीं थे, आप काम करते हो ना, आप वो जब ग्रहण हुआ था ग्रहण देखे थे, ये सब बहुत मदर्स को सुनना पड़ता है. एंड इवन फॉर after the child is born, parents have to hear a lot of, you know, आप जितना दिन उसको breast feed करना चाहिए था नहीं किए हो, formula milk दिए हो इसीलिए हुआ है, right? I know with I'm a parent also. So when my son was little, he just would not breastfeed. He just would not. And he did very little breastfeeding. So I had to formula feed. And I know that a lot of mothers also had to do that for many reasons, multiple reasons. But उसके वजह से autism नहीं हुआ है. TV देखने से नहीं हुआ है. Because I go to work, उसलिए autism नहीं हुआ है. But mothers often have to put up with that kind of thing, right? Sometimes both parents have to. Father को भी कभी वैसा सुनना पड़ता है कि और usually क्या होता है, family में कुछ गड़बड़ हुआ है, then the parents of the autistic kid has to take the blame. बाकी किसी को नहीं. They have to, because your child is like this, the family is like that, right? And much of this difficulty happens because हम ऑटिज्म को समझते नहीं है, समझने में मुश्किल होता है। और ये समझने में मुश्किल होता है, एक तो हम देखते हैं ऑटिज्म इज नॉट विजिबल, कुछ देख कर नहीं पता चलता है। और ये समझने में मुश्किल होता है दैट जब किसी को ऑटिज्म रहता है, वो दुनिया को एक अलग तरीके से महसूस करता है। They perceive the world very, very differently. They experience the world very differently from the rest of us. And because they experience it differently, उसका interaction दुनिया के साथ भी अलग होता है। And because their perception and their interaction is अलग, we tend to judge it. I'm thinking of a little analogy. It's not the same, but supposing हम ऐसे एक कंट्री में गए हैं, अभी तो दुनिया इंटरनेट की वजह से चेंज हो गया है, मगर 20 साल पहले सपोजिंग हम स्वीडन विजिट किए हैं ना। स्वीडन में लोग जब एक दूसरे को ग्रीट करते हैं, they mostly shake hands, right? People shake hands when they are meeting somebody. हैंडशेक करता है। हम वहां गए हैं, हम सबको नमस्ते कर रहे हैं। आई एम द ओनली वन जो नमस्ते कर रहे हैं। तो लोग क्या सोचते हैं, कैसा अजीब है, देखो ये क्या ऐसा ऐसा हाथ करता है, हाथ तो नीचे डाल देना चाहिए ना। एंड दे थिंक आई एम वियर्ड। क्यों? बिकॉज आई एम अ माइनॉरिटी। बिकॉज द मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द पीपल शेक हैंड्स करते हैं, एक माइनॉरिटी है जो हाथ ऐसा करता है। तो उसीलिए लगता है ये अजीब सा है। मगर जहां पर मेजॉरिटी ऐसा करता है, एक हम इंडिया का गांव में 20 साल पहले जाकर हम यदि हैंडशेक करने का कोशिश करते थे, लोग क्या सोचता था, ये अजीब है, क्योंकि वो माइनॉरिटी बन जाता। तब हम जो नमस्ते कर रहे हैं, हम मेजॉरिटी बन जा रहे हैं। तो ऑटिस्टिक लोग दुनिया अलग तरीके से परसीव करते हैं। पीपल विथ ऑटिज्म आर अ माइनॉरिटी। हम जो न्यूरोटिपिकल है, जिसको हम न्यूरोटिपिकल बोलते हैं, जो ऑटिस्टिक नहीं है, हम मेजॉरिटी हैं। उसीलिए लगता है कि वो अजीब सा है, बट वो अजीब नहीं है, वो खाली अलग है, उसका तरीका अलग है। और वो अलग तरीके को हमें समझना बहुत जरूरी है, राइट? इट्स लाइक इफ आई गॉट अ कोरियन ब्राइड, मेरा बेटा एक कोरियन ब्राइड को ले आया, वो जो भी करेगा हमारे लिए अजीब लगेगा। वो कोरियन हिंदी भी नहीं बोलता, इंग्लिश भी नहीं बोलता। हमारा बेटा कोरियन बोल पाता तो उससे बात कर लेता है। उसका खाने का तरीका, बोलने का तरीका, बैठने का तरीका, रिलैक्स करने का तरीका, ड्रेस करने का तरीका, सब कुछ अलग होगा। हमारा लगेगा ये क्या अजीब सा है। तो हम वो सोच से चल सकते हैं, मेरा बेटा क्या अजीब सा लाया है। या तो हम ये सोच बोल सकते हैं कि अच्छा वो उससे प्यार करता है, उसे ले आया है, ठीक है, हम उसको समझने का कोशिश करेंगे, वो भी हमारा तरीका थोड़ा सीख जाएगा, हम भी उसका थोड़ा सीख जाएंगे। ऑटिज्म के साथ भी ऐसा ही है। ये कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। जितना दिन हम ऑटिज्म को प्रॉब्लम समझते रहेंगे ना, वो प्रॉब्लम रहेगा। और ये भी सोचिए, हम जब बोलते हैं ये प्रॉब्लम है, ये प्रॉब्लम है, ये प्रॉब्लम है, मेरा बेटा जन्म से सुन रहा है हमें एक प्रॉब्लम है। वो बड़ा हुआ है तब सारा लाइफ सुना है हम प्रॉब्लम है। उसका लाइफ कैसा है, क्या लगता है, उसको कैसा महसूस होता है? सारा लाइफ जो सुनता है हम एक प्रॉब्लम है। आपको हमको यदि कोई ऐसा करे, क्या लगेगा? तो ये हमें सोचना है कि हम उसे यदि प्रॉब्लम के आंखों से देखेंगे, उसके ऊपर क्या असर हो रहा है। हम सब अपने बच्चे को, अपने ग्रैंड पेरेंट को, अपने नीस नेफ्यू जो भी है
वेरी
हेलो। सो हम जब व्हाट वाज आई सेइंग, हाँ, सो जो भी है, जो भी रिलेटिव है, अंकल हो, आंट हो, ग्रैंड पेरेंट हो, कजन हो, if they all see, I've lost my thread, sorry. If they see the child as a problem, then it becomes very difficult for the person, right? तो हम किस तरीके से हमारे बच्चे को देखते हैं? As people who are different. Like the person who's Korean, the daughter-in-law, the bride who's Korean is different. Like जब हम दूसरे देश में जाते हैं, I'm different. जब दूसरे देश के लोग कोई गांव में विजिट करने जाते हैं, वो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, वो डिफरेंट है. तो हम वो डिफरेंट उस आंखों से देखना शुरू करें कि दे आर डिफरेंट. दैट itself brings about a huge amount of change. और जब हम समझते हैं वो डिफरेंट है, तब हमें नहीं लगेगा कि इसको पनिश करो तब वो ऐसा करना बंद करेगा. उसको कोई तरीके का पनिशमेंट दो तब वो हैंडशेक करना बंद करेगा, क्योंकि वो जो करता है ये नमस्ते की तरफ ही है, और उसको हम पनिश करके बंद नहीं कर सकते हैं. हमें क्या करना होगा? Just like I said with our Korean pride, समझना है, if we, all of us in the family, whether I'm a grandparent, whether I'm a cousin, whether I'm an uncle, and of course the parents, हम समझने का कोशिश करें कि उसका दुनिया उसको कैसे महसूस होता है, वो जो कर रहा है क्यों कर रहा है, नॉट कि जो कर रहा है बैड है, बट क्यों कर रहा है, हम वो समझने का कोशिश करें. Then I would be able to support my child better, right? और हमें एक टीम के तरह काम करना है. Can I request everyone to please switch off your audio, because I tend to get very distracted, right? So what was I saying? So we have to all try and work as a team. हम सबको टीम के तरह काम करना है. If only the parents are working with the child and supporting the child, and every time they go to visit the family, सोचो बच्चे का ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स के साथ विजिट करने गया है, वहां 1 month रहेगा, and if nobody there understands the child, then it can be very difficult, because पेरेंट्स एक चीज करेंगे, बाकी लोग अलग चीज करेंगे. एंड आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स हैव टू लर्न एवरीथिंग. डिफिकल्ट है, बिकॉज ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स गेट ओल्डर, दे गेट सेट इन देयर वेज. सब कुछ चेंज करना मुश्किल है, बट कुछ चेंजेस हम सबको ही ला सकते हैं. हम जितना चेंजेस लाएंगे धीरे धीरे अपने में और हमारा इंटरेक्शन में, द मोर माय चाइल्ड विल बेनिफिट. और जब ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बारे हम बात कर रहे हैं ना, जब तक ना हम एक्सेप्ट करेंगे कि ऑटिज्म एक इट्स अ डिफरेंट वे ऑफ बीइंग, एक अलग तरीके का महसूस है, अलग तरीके का ब्रेन काम करता है, जब तक वो एक्सेप्टेंस नहीं आएगा ना, तब तक all of us in the family, if the parents don't want it, the grandparents will want it, or somebody will tell you, वो होगा क्या? इसको किसी तरीके से क्योर करो. हम ये क्योर के पीछे भागते रहेंगे. As long as I have not been able to accept my child, as long as that happens, I will keep looking for a cure. Cure का मतलब क्या है? हम ये कोई गुरुजी के पास जाएंगे, कोई तबीज लगाएंगे बच्चे के ऊपर. हम नहीं बोल रहे कि वो सब करना नहीं चाहिए, कर सकते हैं ऑफ कोर्स, बट ये सोच से नहीं कि इससे हमारा बच्चा क्योर हो जाएगा, हमारा बच्चा नॉर्मल हो जाएगा. प्लीज कैन एवरीबडी स्विच ऑफ योर ऑडियो, प्लीज प्लीज प्लीज. I get very distracted, thank you so much. So yeah, so as long as we what was I saying? Yeah, so if jab tak acceptance nahi hoga na, we will keep chasing after a cure. And chasing after a cure means I will also not only, I'm going to mandir, masjid, church, har jagah jaakar, I'm trying to get cures. That's one thing. The other thing is that I will keep trying things that I believe or imagine are therapies, but जो actually therapy नहीं है, which are things that are used by a lot of people to just make some money. तो हम किस चीज के पीछे भागेंगे? I will be running after trying to do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, because हम जब वो देते हैं वो बच्चे को लगता है he's more alive, but the child will be more even connected if you're pumping in a lot of oxygen. Can you do that all the time? That is not what is reality, right? I will keep running after doing chelation therapy, which is actually harmful for children. I will run after people offering stem cell therapy. और आप जहीं भी जाएंगे ना, there'll be कुछ parents who will tell you, ये बहुत काम करता है. I will tell you वो क्यों करता है, क्यों बोलता है. क्योंकि जब हम कोई चीज के ऊपर बहुत पैसा खर्चा किए हैं, बहुत टाइम स्पेंड किए हैं, बहुत अपना इमोशनल वो डाले हैं कि इससे ठीक हो जाएगा, believe me, you will imagine that you're seeing change. It's a natural human psychological reaction to believe कि हम change देख रहे हैं. It takes you 1 or 2 years to realize actually कुछ तो नहीं हुआ है. Because आपको जो पेरेंट्स बोलेंगे ना, those are parents जो 1-2 साल पहले शुरू किया है. हमारे पास पेरेंट्स है who did it 7-8 years back and they know कुछ नहीं हुआ है, कुछ नहीं हुआ है. So you all will be running after, we all do that. I've done those kinds of things because at that time हमें बोलने का कोई नहीं था. हम 1-2 चीज किए थे and then I realized it was such a waste. A waste of my child's time, my time, waste of time जिसमें हम अच्छा कुछ कर सकते थे, and it was disrespectful of my child. क्योंकि उसको हम ऐसा चीज करवा रहे थे जो पेनफुल था उसके लिए, but उसको ठीक हो जाएगा. So thought I will do it. So, and at that time, 40 years back, there was no one to tell me. And that is why we talk and we tell parents that don't do these kinds of things where you think that the child will get cured. The other thing that will happen is, the mother is getting training. Mostly it is the mother. Sometimes it is the father also. Sometimes it's the grandparent also. So whoever is the primary caregiver, जो भी primary caregiver है, the primary caregiver, I'll just quickly make a call. Aisha, are you there?
Mary?
Can we put everyone on mute or something?
Yes, I am there. Yes, we are doing. Yes.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. What was I talking about? Okay, all right. So whoever's the primary caregiver is working with the child, right? And there are small changes happening. But kya hoga? There will be times children are not machines. Machine nahi hai कि बस चलता रहेगा, चलता रहेगा, चलता रहेगा. There'll be times when they'll be confused. There'll be times when they'll get disturbed. There'll be times when somebody will give an inappropriate instruction, जिसके वजह से the child will have maybe a meltdown. And that is the time very often many of us start thinking, देखो इतना कुछ किए हैं, कुछ तो हुआ नहीं, अभी भी ऐसा हो रहा है. इतना साल दिन काम किए, देखो कैसा meltdown हो रहा है. Do all of us sometimes get really angry and start screaming? हम करते हैं या नहीं? You can just put up a thumb or nod. कभी-कभी हम, all of us, do we sometimes get angry and shout and scream? Does it mean that, we don't know how to do all the other things that we were already doing, that we've lost all our skills? नहीं होता है ना, हम वैसा कभी नहीं सोचते हैं. But हमारे बच्चे में कभी भी, even when they're progressing beautifully, they've learned a lot of skills, they have learned to communicate in ways that people are understanding what they want. One meltdown and everybody thinks इसका तो कुछ नहीं हुआ है, क्या फायदा है ये सब करके. But they are not machines, they are people. There will be times when कोई आकर एक उल्टा इंस्ट्रक्शन देगा. There will be times कोई आकर उसको ऐसा कुछ बोलेगा that he'll be confused. हमें तो ये करना था, ये क्यों बोल रहा है? And when that happens, the child may have a meltdown because they're people. But that does not mean that they have lost all their skills. And talking about skills, one of the things that often parents, parents, grandparents, and extended family all keep thinking कि ये एक बच्चा जब तक बात नहीं कर रहा है, उसका कोई improvement नहीं है. That tends to be a kind of a way of thinking that a lot of families have. The reality is that there are a lot of autistic people who don't speak. It has nothing to do with their intellect. उसका इंटेलेक्ट के साथ कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है, कॉग्निशन के साथ कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है. काफी पुराने किताबें हैं, आप जब वो पढ़ेंगे, it will say that a child who has not spoken to the age of 5 has very little potential. वो सही बात नहीं है. Those are old manuals, those are old books, and we should not go by that. Our understanding of autism has move light years away. A child who is not speaking, that does not mean a number of things. One, उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि उसका कोई इंटेलेक्ट नहीं है, कोई अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं है. Two, it does not mean वो कुछ समझता नहीं है. Very often एक perception नहीं है, वो तो कुछ समझ नहीं रहा है. But we ask, क्यों नहीं समझ रहा है? नहीं, वो बोलता तो नहीं है. बोलता नहीं है तो उसके साथ समझ का क्या कनेक्शन है? बोलता नहीं है is one thing. समझना is a different thing. The two are not connected. The child may not be speaking, but of course the child understands. And because the child understands, it is so important कि हम बच्चे के सामने we do not keep discussing the child. We do not keep discussing the child because the child is not speaking. And ये एक होता है कि if the child is not speaking, professionals भी करते हैं. Family आए हैं, बच्चे सामने बैठा है, and they are saying, अच्छा वैसा करता है, चिल्लाता है क्या तब? अच्छा. How would any of us feel? Any of us? हम में से कोई भी जो हम attend कर रहे हैं, हम वहां बैठे हैं और हमारा मदर और एक कोई विजिटर आया है, दोनों बैठकर बोल रहा है, अच्छा ये मेरी ना, ये पता नहीं, ये कभी कभी तो कैसे कैसे उठकर चली जाती है, और उसका ड्रेस करने का तरीका भी हमें समझ नहीं आता है, और वो तो कभी बाहर जब जाती है किसी को बोलती भी नहीं है, वैसे चली जाती. How would I feel? How would you feel? How would any of us feel if people we know and people we don't know सब वहां पर हमारे सामने बैठकर हमारे बारे में not nice things बोलता है? हमारे बारे में nice things बोलो, we all love it. Who doesn't? If somebody sits in front of me and starts saying, oh, wonderful things about me, we all love it. But हमारे बारे में बुरा चीजें बोले, not nice things बोले, do we like it? So that is very important for the entire extended family to understand, that we do not keep discussing the child in the child's presence. Never, never, never do it, because what we are doing is the same thing as a problem. We see the child as a problem, making the child feel that I'm this horrible person who does this and who does that. And what our children do, most of the time it is beyond their control, or it is within their control. They are doing things from their understanding. हमें उसका अंडरस्टैंडिंग समझना है. हम उसका अंडरस्टैंडिंग समझेंगे तो हम उस जो बच्चे कर रहे हैं उसको हम जिस तरीके से करवाने मांगते हैं वो करेगा. मगर हम उसको समझे नहीं है और उसको जबरदस्ती और कुछ करवाएंगे, it will never work. Right? So we don't ever want to sit and discuss in front of the child. And the other thing, जो families में बहुत होता है, we have our arguments and our fights right in front of the child. And believe me, it does not have to be an autistic child. This is any child. We cannot have our arguments and fights in front of our children. Because think about it, especially for younger children, for any child. If and younger children के साथ और ज़्यादा होता है, and with autistic children it is more because they can't come and say, क्यों ऐसा कर रहे हो, मत करो. A lot of neurotypical children will say, please papa stop fighting, please mama stop fighting, nani please वैसे fight मत करो. Neurotypical children sometimes say, but not all. Fighting in front of our children is a terrible thing. And fighting in front of autistic children, because they are just not able to understand what is happening, is absolutely a terrible thing to do. And a lot of the time, what happens is when we have these kinds of battles in front of our children, whether it is about the child, whether it is about the autism, or whether it is about something else, when we have these battles in front of them, what they tend to do is they tend to shut up. They're trying to close themselves up. And when they close up, it's harder to get them to draw them out. Jitna they try to shut themselves up, the harder it is to draw them out. Because tab kya ho raha hai? What they are finding is that the world outside is a very difficult world. The world outside is a very disturbing world. I want to just stay in my own world because it's a safe place. So we have to keep in mind, हम जब ये सब करते हैं, right? Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to mention is, very often with children who don't talk, प्रोफेशनल्स सजेस्ट करते हैं कि उसके साथ एक एस यूज करना स्टार्ट कर दें. यूज एन असिस्टेड एंड ऑगमेंटेटिव मोड ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, जिसको हम एएससी बोलते हैं शॉर्ट में. एंड that is one of the best advice that professionals can give, right? This is something that we are realizing more and more how critical it is. Because there are autistic people, all autistic people, who are not speaking. They have a lot to say. उसके अंदर बहुत कुछ है जो वो बोलने चाहते हैं, मगर उसको वो बोल नहीं पाते हैं क्योंकि वो शब्द नहीं यूज करते हैं. और जो ऑटिस्टिक बच्चे शब्द यूज करते भी है, many of them, despite the fact that they are using speech, are often not able to communicate everything that they want to communicate. So हम जब AAC यूज करते हैं, it is not only an assisted mode, which means कि जो बोलता नहीं है उसके एक बोलने का तरीका, but augmentative. तो जो बोलता भी है, बहुत चीज वो बोल नहीं सकता है, जब उसको एक AAC देते हैं वो सब चीज बोल सकता है. And I'm sure many of you have, with internet, आप लोग को पता होगा, you would have seen on the net, you would have read about it. There are autistic people जो एकदम बोलता नहीं है या तो बहुत कम बोलता है. Once they get an assistive device, इतना, like poignant चीजें वो लोग बोलते हैं, अपने experiences के बारे, वो दुनिया को कैसे महसूस करते हैं, उसके साथ जो किया जाता है उसके बारे, उसको क्या फील होता है, क्या महसूस होता है उसके बारे. So using AACs is something that is, when the minute a professional suggests, because बहुत parents को पता भी नहीं है, but using AACs is a very important thing that you want to jump to. कुछ parents को और कुछ family members को ऐसा महसूस, कुछ parents use करते हैं मगर extended family members बोलते हैं क्यों ऐसे use करते हो, इससे कोई अच्छा ही नहीं होगा. AAC से nothing could be better than that. AAC use करने से ऐसा नहीं कि बच्चा कभी नहीं बोलेगा. That is not true. हम जब जितना time, हमें तो क्या बोले, हमें I don't know how to speak Punjabi. right? But if I'm in a Punjabi household, हमको पंजाबी नहीं आता है, I can sign and say, आप पानी दे दो or whatever. And the day I discover, अच्छा, water is pani. In Punjabi also, I'll stop doing this and I'll say pani. तो हम साइंस यूज करते हैं जब हम स्पीच से कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. जैसे हम स्पीच से कम्युनिकेट कर पाएंगे, आई विल नॉट यूज साइंस. सो ऐसा कभी नहीं होता है कि बिकॉज यू आर यूजिंग एन AC, a child will not speak. Another area जिसमें काफी टाइम parents have a lot of difficulties with is providing children the accommodations that they need. एक जो बहुत बड़ा accommodation a lot of autistic people need is something that gives them predictability, right? Something जो चीज उससे उसको predictability देता है, ऐसा एक चीज जिससे उसको पता रहता है क्या होने वाला है और क्या नहीं होने वाला है, right? और कब होने वाला है. ये सब चीजें जैसे ही we can give to our autistic people, it makes their life easier. It makes them feel more calm, more settled, and they're able to function better. And one of the ways जिससे हम ये predictability provide करते हैं, क्या होने वाला है, क्या नहीं होने वाला है, that is what we call structure and visuals, right? Because most autistic people, lot of non-autistic people also, but ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा autistic people have a lot of difficulty with transition. Change के साथ बहुत मुश्किल होता है. आप लोग को पता होगा जब बच्चे को, those of you taking your kids to school, हम रोज स्कूल जाते हैं, एक दिन कोई कारण से हमको दूसरा रूट लेने पड़ा, क्या हुआ? Usually the child gets very distressed. क्यों? Because the child has a difficulty with transition, right? हम everyday park में जाते हैं, आज बारिश हो रहा, park में नहीं गए हैं. What happens? Very often there's a difficulty. The child has a lot of challenges because the child has difficulty in dealing with that sudden change. And when you use visuals and structure, two things happen. One, many things happen, but I'm just thinking of two right now. एक है, you help the child deal with that transition, right? Because the child is feeling more comfortable. B, you teach the child to deal with change. Change के साथ deal करना सिखा रहे हैं. And of course, there is two other very big things. One is you actually teach the child communication, right? When you provide structure and visuals, you're teaching the child communication. And finally, a very important one, and I'm sure there are lots of other good things that happens with structure, you teach the child to develop motivation and independence. We all know that, with autistic children, motivation and independence are challenging things, right? बहुत कुछ करता है मगर independently नहीं करता है. So these are the very important things that come with the use of structure. And when somebody goes to visit an extended family, very often there would be things that the child does or the child does not do, or the mother does, or the parent, the primary caregiver है, जो बच्चे के साथ करता है या नहीं करता है. Oftentimes family members को लगेगा ऐसा क्यों करने का जरूरत है, क्यों उसको हर बार सब कुछ दे देते हो, क्यों उसको रुला रहे हो, right? Or either of these things, क्यों रुला रहे हो और क्यों उसको हर बार दे रहे हो. There is always these reasons behind it. जब parents ये सब चीजें करते हैं ना, there is a good reason why they are doing it. For a parent who's getting trained, is beginning to understand, it may not be the parent, it could be a grandparent जो training लिया है, who is implementing it. Anyway, whoever is the primary support person, it is very important to listen to that person. वो जो भी बोल रहा है ना, उसका बहुत कारण है why they are doing that. one of the things that I wanted to touch on is about the school. So very often, kya hua hai, the child has been put into a particular school, and then there is a pressure from other members in the family कि इस school में क्यों डाले हो. Usually it happens with a special needs school कि इसको special needs school में क्यों डाले हो, उसको mainstream school में डाल दो, वहां पर जाके तो कुछ नहीं सीखेगा. The thing is that it's not that special needs schools are better, but it is not that mainstream schools are better either. It is very important to leave it to the primary caregiver to decide what is it that is benefiting the child. Kabhi there would be a mainstream school that is excellent, जहां पर ऐसा support मिल रहा है, जहां पर बच्चे का साथ कोई bullying नहीं होता है. The child comes back excited every day, wanting to go back to school. You will have regular schools which are like that, right? But you will also have regular schools where the child is under deep stress, where the child is facing a lot of bullying, right? And more importantly, the child is not really learning. The child is going to school and coming back, but koi learning nahi ho raha hai. Again, there'll be special needs school, jahan par the child will go to school every day and come back excited to go to that special needs school. And there will be special needs schools where the child will go and not be very keen on going. So it is very important to think carefully ki what kind of schooling is helping my child. What is the kind of schooling where my child is actually learning? Because ultimately, what is the purpose of schooling? That the child learns. And you know, Abhi, the more we are understanding our children, the more we realize that speaking, not speaking doesn't matter. All of them can learn so much. They have so much learning that they can do. And we also know that when they can learn, that the way that they have the capacity to learn, possibilities of employment are opening up. Our children are getting into employment. It doesn't matter whether they are very fluently vocal or not, they're getting into employment. But that it is important that they learn how to, of course, they learn the self-help skills, the daily living skills, right? And they also learn cognitive skills. They not learn, I would say, they develop their cognitive skills. So all of those are very, very important. In all of this, something that is very important is that the mother, who's the primary caregiver very often, but sometimes it is the father, and I keep saying other family members, whoever is the primary caregiver gets a break. It's very important to take a break and recoup. Another point that is important is for the parents to have the opportunity. Kaise hoga pata nahi, magar kisi tarike se the parents have an opportunity and their extended family can support so that the couple can get some time together on their own. Even if it can't be for 2 or 3 days, maybe just for an afternoon, right? Because until the direct family are getting a break and are able to recoup, you begin to start getting burnt out. And when one is burnt out, it's like, pouring from an empty vessel. You are really not able to do the best that you can. One of the things that I want to mention that comes up very often is that, the mother must always give up her job and to look after the child. And there's a lot of pressure from the extended family that the mother should stay at home and not work anymore. And honestly, what we feel is that it's better to have a mother go to work and come back and be able to spend quality time with the child than for a mother to stay at home, feel terrible about not having a career that she loved anymore, and have that, constantly pricking her mind and not being able to spend quality. Whatever she does with the child is colored with that. And we've seen that happen. Sometimes with some mothers, not with all, with some mothers who've been forced by the extended family to give up their careers. They've not been able to help the child much because at the back of their head was always this thought, I had that career which I loved and I can't do it. I'd had this thing which I loved doing, which I can't do it anymore. So I think it's very important to allow mothers to continue to continue with the whatever that they were doing. And most importantly, to remember that we, something else that I wanted to talk about, right? One thing that I forgot to mention is that very often, why is this coming to the middle of my thing? 1 second. I'm not able to, I can't see the screen anymore. Something has come up. I don't know how to get out of it. Doesn't matter. I'll just keep talking. Sometimes what happens is that there are members of the extended family who feel embarrassed about being around the child in public. Sometimes it is the father who's very embarrassed about being around the child and about what the child does. Sometimes the mother also feels embarrassed, but mothers usually are able to move to acceptance quicker. Not all mothers, I agree, but mostly mothers can. The thing is that very often fathers feel ki, no, I'm not really embarrassed, but I accept my child. But society to accept nahi karte hain, right? Yes, of course, society does not accept. But society का acceptance आएगा जब हम में acceptance है. If I, as a mother or a father or a grandparent or an uncle, is ashamed and embarrassed of this kid and say, इसको family function में मत लाओ, बहुत problem होता है, उसको घर में छोड़ कर आओ and all that kind of stuff, हम public में नहीं जाएंगे. If I am ashamed of the child, can I really expect society to be accepting of the child? क्योंकि society का acceptance आता कहाँ से? हमको देखकर. When they say that we, all the family members, are comfortable about the child, it doesn't matter what the person is doing, then that is when society will change. They will look and they'll say, अच्छा है ये अलग है, हाँ, but कोई बात नहीं, अलग है तो क्या है? That acceptance can only come from us. Very often as family members, we insist that the child will go to a mainstream school. And then we insist that the teachers and everybody treat the child in a proper way, right? We get very bothered that they do not treat my child very well. But when I go to the school with the child and my child does any little thing, I get terribly, terribly bothered. Then who's giving the message that what the child is doing is not good? I'm giving it, right? So हम दुनिया को यदि चेंज करने मांगते हैं ना और चाहते हैं कि दुनिया हमारे बच्चे को एक्सेप्टेंस से देखे, that will have to come from us. We can't expect the world to change and not be able to change ourselves. Because if I'm embarrassed about what my child is doing or is, then I have not accepted my child. So it's very, very important to really work on that aspect, right? I'm trying to think what else. Right. And I think this might be the last one that I'm thinking of, that very often there is so much of pressure to make the child normal. Now, an autistic child will always be autistic. She or he can learn a lot of things. She and he will be able to do a lot of things. But if you want them to be normal, then what you're wanting is that they keep pretending to be like you and me, which they are not. They're autistic. And they will always be autistic. So now I again missed my point. Yeah. The thing is that as long as I have this feeling that I want my child to become normal, I will keep dragging my child from one therapy to the next, to the next, and to the next. And that is not good for any child. If all day my child is being rushed from therapy to therapy, वो lunch भी गाड़ी में खाता है, नाश्ता भी गाड़ी में करता है, क्योंकि वो therapy में जाना है और कुछ therapy में जाना है. Where is the time to be a child? Where is there the time to spend quality time with the family? Where is the time for me to get to know my child? So we have to think of these things, especially this thing of being able to accept my child as an entire family. Because, we, the family, we are the bridge with the world. हमारे बच्चे का bridge with the world, we are the ones, right? And we have to make that bridge as smooth, as easy as possible. Because हम नहीं करेंगे तो और कोई करने का नहीं है. So I think I've kind of covered everything that I wanted to say. And if anyone has any questions, thoughts, anything.
Ruchika wants to ask a question. She has raised the hand. So Ruchika, go ahead and ask the question, please.
I can't see everyone, so I should be telling me. Okay, Ruchika, yes, tell me. I can see you now, yes. There's something wrong with us. Yeah. No,
Good morning, Mary ma'am. It was such an honor to be a part of this webinar, and I'm really glad that you talked about these things. It was actually what was needed. The first thing is when you talked about the primary caregiver, yes, it happens. Even if the family is highly educated, even if everybody knows that it is not a one-person play, everything is put on your shoulder as a mother, because as a mother, you have given birth to a child who needs a lot of support. So it's your responsibility to take care of the child who needs a lot of support. So not so much can be done in that regard, but it's fine that whatever support we are getting, either from an esteemed institute like AFA, who has empowered me enough to raise my confidence in myself and my child, and or some friends and family members, or a good husband who has always been there by the side of the child to support him in whatever best way we are trying to do for our children. First point. Second point, you talk about acceptance, that when we accept the child, then the society is going to accept the child. Only yesterday this incident happened. I don't give a damn whether I'm traveling through a public transport, that people are looking constantly at my child and me, because I don't care about that. But only yesterday this happened, that when I entered the metro and I tried to get a seat for my child, as his waiting was a little difficult. So I requested one of the person, I told my child that I requested one of the person, please stand and let the child sit. He wants to see outside and he wants to sit here. And you know what the person said to me? He said, "Okay, just right in front, there is a seat reserved for your child." And I said, "What are you talking about? How come you can say that there's a seat reserved for my child?" And he said, "आप उस सीट पे बैठिए, वो आपकी सीट है." मैंने कहा, ये कहीं पे मेंशन नहीं कर रखा है कि ये सीट पर्टिकुलरली इस बच्चे की है. आई थिंक वो आप ज्यादा डिजर्व करते हो, आप जाके उस सीट पे बैठ जाइए. People have this kind of mentality that if you are traveling with a child with a special need, he has some sort of, what do you say in raw terms, a chut ki bimari, that even if you sit with the child, you'll get that. So I was so angry at that time. My husband was also there, but my husband didn't react it. I said a few words to that person, and that person kept quiet, बात को आगे ना बढ़ाया जाए. But I made sure कि मेरा बच्चा उसी सीट पे बैठे जहाँ पे वो deserve करता है बैठना. I didn't let him sit in that seat. Okay, so उस टाइप की मेंटालिटी आपको कहीं ना कहीं अंदर पिंच करती है, चाहे आप कितने भी कॉन्फिडेंट हो, चाहे आप कितना भी ब्यूटीफुली अपने चाइल्ड को सोशल सेटअप में कराने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, but social support is totally zero. I usually travel by public transports. It's been years I've been traveling by public transport, be it trains, buses, auto rickshaws, metros, mostly metros. So the support is totally zero. At the moment I enter any metro, my child, the cute child, he just sits there and everybody is seeing. The moment he starts the behavior, हर किसी की नजर हमारी तरफ चली जाती है, उस पर्सन की नजर वो ज्यादा चली जाती है when my child is doing something and I'm not giving reaction because I'm not supposed to give reaction. Okay, थोड़ी देर में बच्चा ऑटोमेटिकली सेटल डाउन हो जाएगा. So that thing really affects your mind at that point of time. I try to encourage people even on my way going that this is my child and you have to accept him the way he is. He has also followed the rule. He has also taken the tickets. He also deserves to have a seat inside the metro. Just because he's shouting a bit doesn't mean that he cannot travel by a metro. There, my confidence really shatters. And after that, I'm really affected for a day or two that how should I manage all this? Am I doing the right thing? Am I capable enough to take care of the child? Because I feel helpless and alone at that point. Family के अंदर तो होता ही होता है, but I'm confident enough to tackle that now, thanks to the support AFA has given me, the confidence AFA has built up in me. But when it comes to the
Thank you so
social
much,
setup,
Ruchika. Thank you so much, Ruchika. We got your words. And Mary, please, if you can give.
Okay, so quickly, one is that, thank you, Ruchika. So, ek to education is not a this thing indicator of how well one is able to accept, right? The other thing that you said, you said that support from society is zero. And I would say that you're feeling that because you are experiencing certain situations that is bothering you. Actually, support in society has changed remarkably from what it was when my child was little to what it is now. There has been a huge, see, abhi to aap metro mein travel bhi kar sakte ho. There was a time, even 10 years back, I know many of our kids could not even get into a public transport, right? So, बहुत change हुआ है. The other thing I would say is that, see, लोग आपको यदि कोई कुछ नहीं बोल रहा है, they're only staring. Don't let that bother you, because people stare because it's different. Because it's different. Supposing if I were wearing a dhoti in Finland, people would stare because वो कभी धोती देखा नहीं है, right? So they're staring because it's different. And if they say something, see, you have to get comfortable in yourself, and just if people say something, say, he's different, he's having a bit of difficulty, with a smile on your face. You'll be amazed how quickly people will, accept it if it comes with comfort from you. If you say it with anger, you will ignite anger in people. If you say it with comfort, you will ignite comfort in people. So what you have to say is that कोई कुछ बोले तो I know difficulty हो रहा है आपका, मगर उसका भी थोड़ा difficulty हो रहा है ना, and that's it, with a nice smile on your face. People will settle down. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let me go to you, Shivani. I can see your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. It was really, I could connect with what were you saying, because my daughter is 6. She is she has mild autism, high functioning, and she talks. She's verbal. But yeah, I could feel that things you were telling, how people do and how we do it. So, ma'am, is there any program that can make me better for her? As in, is there any parent training program also? It is online.
Yes.
So that I can learn better to make her life much more better and easy for her. So
get in touch with, I'm sure there must have been a contact for when you were getting in touch with registering for this. Aisha?
It was on the Facebook Special Mothers
there
group.
must be an email address or a mobile number. Connect
Yes.
over there. We do have parent training programs. And
Okay.
basically, we call them
Yes.
parent empowerment programs because we want parents to
Okay.
be empowered, right?
Yes,
Shivani,
ma'am.
please share your email ID and we will share you the details of all
Sure,
the
ma'am.
Thank
program.
you.
Thank you so much,
Sure, ma'am.
Shivani.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Kalyani, you can ask your question, please. Kalyani, we request you to ask your question.
Yeah, I'm her husband. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yes,
can.
yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. First of all, I think it was quite an enlightening session, and we attended this as a full family with extended people around. So I think
Oh,
it
wonderful.
to open up a lot of points that we had as a doubts. So my daughter is 2 years old, and she got diagnosed about 6 months back. And now we are taking her to the OT, and it's been 4 months that she is attending the OT sessions. But every time we travel, say we travel by a car or auto, she till the time we reach the hospital, she is okay. The moment she sees the hospital, she start whining and crying. And it's been 4 months, there is no improvement. So shall we continue it, or what exactly shall we do in this case? We are not very clear on this thought.
See, it may not be because of what the OT is doing or not doing. Sometimes, yes, it could be, but it is also possible that you're going to a hospital.
Yeah.
Is it a noisy place? Is it a confusing place? So you have to try and figure out what it is that your daughter is finding difficult. So during the OT session, if she's happy and cooperative, then obviously the therapy is doing good for her. But if it is only the getting there, then you want to try and figure out if it is a very noisy place, and before getting to the OT room, maybe you could talk to the OT person, or is there something else along the way? It's hard for me to say what it is, but you want to try and figure it out, because if she's enjoying the OT sessions, if she seems to be having fun during the session, then I would say the session is good. If she's not enjoying the session, then that is something then you want to think about again. But ultimately, you'll have to figure it out, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anshul, you can ask your question, please.
Hello, ma'am. Hello,
Yeah.
Mary, ma'am.
Yes,
Good
we
morning,
can
ma'am.
hear you.
Yes, yes. Okay. Ma'am, I am Shona's mom and 2013 PCTP batch. And now my
Okay.
daughter is, yes, ma'am. And you know that you are my true inspiration, and many more mothers are inspired by you. And I'm glad to attend this webinar. And ma'am, I have a question. My daughter used to be very calm and quiet, and she was very happy, like Shona, if you remember her. But now suddenly she has become aggressive. I don't know why. And she's going to mainstream school, and she's attending the mainstream classes, and she's in class 6 now. But now all of a sudden she has become aggressive, and not all the time, but in between, like in science period or in some other period. So I don't know what is the reason.
See, this would require a more one-on-one to figure out. But one
Okay.
of the quick things I want to touch on, see, it could be anything
Yes,
which one needs to figure out. It could be something in the school, something with a particular lesson, something else. It could also be the fact that she's 13 now, right? She's entering
12.
adolescence.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is a time where there is a need to, assert oneself and stuff like that. And it
Yes.
could be something that's happening in the family. So I don't know. This is
Okay.
not something that I can just answer offhand, but a session would help us figure out what
Okay.
it is. It could be any of these things. And
Okay, ma'am.
based on what it is, then you want to work out what you want to do in order to help her.
Okay.
Right?
Ma'am, one more thing. Actually, you have done so much for us, like disability certificate and all. One request, if you can do, like the autistic children, like the children we have, they have different way of learning. They learn differently. They don't learn like neurotypicals learn.
Yeah.
So why do they have to opt the same syllabus, which they neurotypicals are opting? Like, is there any way to have different syllabus for them to give their boards or not?
See, a
Like,
lot.
can they have different way of learning because they are having the same books, ma'am, and they face a lot of difficulty.
See, a lot of autistic, so, okay. First of all, there are a lot of autistic kids who have a different way of learning, a lot of them, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Once we have helped them understand how to learn, then they kind of just take off like everybody else. That initial thing needs to be done with a lot of kids. Not all autistic kids, but a lot of autistic kids, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing is, and once that is done, then they are able to do the regular syllabus. And there are a lot of autistic kids who do the regular syllabus, who are happy to do it, who enjoy the learning, right? So we cannot have a blanket thing for autistic people, because
Okay.
a lot of autistic kids do the regular syllabus, they enjoy the learning, they've gone on to, do well in their learning and their education and their careers. But if your child is having difficulties, you want to figure out what is the area the difficulty is happening, right?
Okay.
You
Okay.
will usually find that many of them do very well in the early years. And this is something we've said at multiple workshops. They will do very well in the early years. And then from the 4th or 5th grade, they start having trouble.
Yes.
Part
Right.
of the difficulty is that we haven't worked on helping them learn how to learn in typical ways. In understanding, see, what happens is that they have very strong rote memory, many of them. So in the early years, they've got everything by rote. And we think that we will make them learn by rote, and the kids who've done by rote till class 12, but they haven't really learned.
Right.
There are kids who have not really had an education. They've done things by rote, killing
Right.
themselves with the syllabus.
Right.
That is what we need to work on right from the word go. That doesn't happen. Usually, the minute the child gets into a regular school, we think, acha, bas ho gaya. Everything finished. Now to chal, ab ho jayega. But we forget that we need to work on their learning style, right? So if a child is having difficulty, despite all of that, in the senior years, they can appear for one subject less, they can get more time in the examinations. There are all these things that have happened, right? There are certain things that when they go for their CBSE, that they can get exemptions for. That is one. The other thing is that there are many kids who find the regular school learning very hard because of the way it moves, and not because of the intellect. They have the intellect, they have their ability, they're very intelligent, many of them, but they don't like the kind of school learning that happens. Then they prefer to study through NIOS, and they complete their school through open learning.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? Open schooling, not open learning. Sorry,
Okay.
open schooling.
Open schooling. Right.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you so much,
maybe that
Akshay.
can. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We request Sushila to ask the question, please.
Hi, Sushila. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Was on mute.
Hear you.
Hello, ma'am. Thank
Yeah.
you for the session. And I have two concerns for my two different children. One is in KG1 right now. Last session, he was in playgroup. So for verbal and for cognition, he is doing very well, but he is a bit low for writing, means his grip is very loose, muscle stones are weak. So I'm working on that. But the class teacher is pressurizing the parents just because he is not writing to repeat the playgroup. And I think it is not good for the child as well, because he knows beyond his syllabus of playgroup, even of nursery and KG1. And I assured the mother, because he has started tracing and joining the dots, I assured the mother that he will write. But the class teacher should have some patience. But mother is pressurized and she is asking me again and again the same question, do I need to repeat? So how to convince them? Either I'm thinking right or not. First, and then I will ask the second question. Ma'am, please.
Okay. See, the thing is that a lot of autistic people have motor coordination challenges, right? And that is why he's having difficulty. And many of them, eventually we suggest they start using a computer in order to write the answer instead of doing it, manually. The other thing is that what you can tell the class teacher or approach the school is, why does a child have to repeat a class? a child repeats a class when there is learning has not happened, when the child has not learned what is being taught in the class. If the child has no difficulty with that and is just having a motor coordination challenge, why would the child want to repeat the class? And I think that's the point you'll want to make, that when does a child have to repeat a class? If we feel the child has not learned, it will benefit the child by repeating, because they will learn the things that they have not learned. Here, it is not about learning, it's about a motor coordination issue. And there's no reason for the child to be repeating the class. And the parents could consider eventually, getting him to use a computer instead of writing.
Mary, we have a question from Ankita. Ankita, can you ask your question, please?
Hello, Ms. Barua.
Hi.
It's really nice to listen to what you had to say and very enlightening. I had one question. So I was working from home before I had my son. And even after he was born, I was doing some sort of work. Either I was tutoring or I was writing. I'm a freelance writer. And since his diagnosis, which happened in 2019, I have had to keep everything on the back burner and completely focused, because then immediately after his diagnosis, the COVID lockdown came by, and that had its own set of challenges. My question is, I personally do not have any support system in terms of looking after the child and taking him to therapy, coming back, working with the child, and like especially there's a lot of focus on the home plan. So all of that, since I am the one who's doing most of the sessions with him, and I'm the one who's learning. I'm currently in a situation where I don't think anybody can replicate what I'm doing. So in that, like you had a point to say that mother did not completely give up on her passion or her career or her profession. So how do I manage that? Because I also understand that my husband, if he does not go to work and if he is involved in this, then how are we going to support his therapies? How are we going to support the expenses to come in raising him? Because raising a child on the spectrum is a very expensive job. So we need to plan even for those things. So how do I solve this particular query of mine?
So it's about taking the child for therapy, right? Or also while working at home?
Yeah, it's everything. It's basically I'm the one who's spending 90% of his week time with him.
See, one has to find a balance and then decide what one wants to do, right?
Okay.
So, you could decide, I'm just saying, like you could decide that, okay, I will keep a help at home. I'll keep somebody who could do some of the basic stuff with him.
Okay.
With my house and do some of the basic stuff with him. Right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And then what would happen is that maybe your child will not get as many hours as you give now, but then it's okay. Honestly, I feel that is okay. Because ultimately, you feel that is what you want to do, then that is okay. If you don't want to do it, that's not. But if you feel that, for instance, I had done a home program with my child. I did it for a year and a half. At the end of that, I said, I don't want to do it anymore. If I'd continued doing the home program for another 5 years, who knows what would have been. But I knew I did not want to do it anymore. I had no guilt. I had none of that. Because I knew that if I did more, I would not be able to do it the way I was doing. I would just get frustrated.
Yeah, nobody talks about this, ma'am. Everybody's like, oh, what, 17 hours, 16 hours, 8 hours, 40 to 50
That's
hours.
what I'm saying. It is a ridiculous thing that has come out of the US. And in India, we lap up anything that comes from the US, no matter how terrible it is. Right? Including stem cell therapy and including all of that, right? The thing is that you do what you think you can do. And you're trying to do the best you can. If you feel, so, we have one parent who's my age who continued working. And she spoke to me once. I said, yes, of course. It's much better that you continue working, because she felt terrible about giving up a career. I said, you work, because if you don't work, and we know parents who give up their work, and I've always felt upset about having not had the career that they wanted.
Okay.
So you'll be working 19 hours. If you can keep somebody at home who will help you with your child, and if you can come back from work and spend some quality time with him, and if that makes you happy, do that. Because if parents are not happy, how will the child be happy?
That is so true, ma'am. We are modeling the life for them, you know.
Yeah,
The
because if
entire-
you're not happy, the child will learn to be happy. If you're upset and bothered the whole time, your child will be upset and bothered.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
You have to do 19 hours of therapy. You do as many as you think you as an individual want to do. And if somebody else is doing 19 hours, it doesn't make that person a better person and you a worse person. And doesn't make you a better person and that one a worse person. We're all different. We all do things differently.
Thank you so much, Mary, for having such a wonderful conversation. This was really a great learning opportunity for all of us today. Thank you to the wonderful participants for joining us and making this happen today. We wish you all a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you.